Hey folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Econosite, and in this video let's talk about India's renewed focus on nuclear energy and how it may reconfigure the composition of its power sector. Look at the current composition of India's power sector. This is the status as of May of 2023. Dominated by coal, fossil fuels make up the majority of India's installed power generation capacity at around 57%, while the remaining 43% comes from clean energy sources like solar, wind, hydro, nuclear, etc. Note that nuclear power is a non-carbon emitting energy source and makes up less than 2% of the total installed power capacity. Is this bad? Too low? Or is it on par with the rest of the world? To answer that, let's understand another term, baseload power. Baseload power source is the one that can generate a certain minimum amount of electricity all day long, all 24 hours in a day. For example, coal-based power plant generates electricity as long as you keep burning the coal. Natural gas-based power plant generates power as long as the gas supply continues. Same applies for nuclear energy as well. As long as the nuclear fuel is available, power generation continues. Renewable energy sources, however, cannot be called baseload power sources. See, solar power plant generates electricity for some 4 to 5 hours a day when the sun is shining. Wind turbine provides power only when the wind blows. Hydropower is an exception. It is the only baseload energy source in this category. Because of this baseload phenomenon, the actual power generation mix differs from the installed power generation mix. See, even though coal makes up 49% of the installed generation capacity, it makes up more than 70% of the actual generation mix. Because coal plants need to keep running when solar and wind installations cease to supply any power, for example. Take clean energy sources. Even when clean energy sources make up 43% of India's installed power generation capacity, they make up only about 22% of actual power generation. You can see we cannot yet fully rely on just renewable energy sources. As battery storage and energy storage tech matures, we may get to that point. But until then, as a nation, we need a significant amount of conventional baseload power in the energy mix. And these baseload power sources need to be clean, because as we grow our economy, we need to clamp down on pollution as well. This is where nuclear energy comes into the picture. Here's how. Baseload energy sources make up about 86% of India's actual power generation mix. In that, nuclear power contributes a negligible amount, about 3%, whereas coal, a highly polluting fuel, dominates with 72% contribution. I think it is quite clear by now that India's installed and actual nuclear power capacity is too low. India aspires to be a developed nation by 2047, so let's check out some of these developed nations or regions and see how their energy mix looks like. In the United States, baseload energy sources make up about 83% of its actual power generation mix. In that, nuclear energy contributes 19%. Coal is less than 20%. In the EU, baseload power is at 71% of the total, nuclear at 22%, and coal again less than 20%. In fact, in some of the European nations like Sweden, Denmark, and Austria, more than 70% of the electricity consumption was met with just the renewable energy sources. I suspect having a lot less coal and a lot more nuclear and natural gas in the energy mix is one of the many reasons why the air is cleaner in these countries. Look at China. China has 57 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity against India's 6.8 gigawatts. The United States has over 100 gigawatts. India needs to work on its nuclear power sector, and it appears that the government is acting in this regard. Indian government by itself has plans to increase the installed nuclear capacity from 6.8 gigawatts currently to over 22 gigawatts by 2031. In addition to that, India is seeking an investment of $26 billion in nuclear power from the private sector. The government is in talks with 5 private firms, including Reliance Industries and Tata Power, to invest around $5.3 billion each. With this private investment, the government hopes to build an additional 11 gigawatts of new nuclear power generation capacity by 2040. It is going to be a hybrid model of investment because under the Indian law, private companies cannot set up nuclear power plants, but they can supply components, equipment, and sign construction contracts for work outside of the reactor. So the expectation from the private players is that they will make investments in the nuclear plants, acquire land, water, and undertake construction in areas outside the reactor complex of the plants. The rights to build and run the stations and their fuel management will rest with NPCIL, a government agency. NPCIL would operate the projects for a fee, and private companies would earn revenue from the power plant's electricity sales. In summary, India's baseload power is dominated by coal, a dirty fuel. In advanced parts of the world, baseload power is largely made up of relatively cleaner energy sources like natural gas and nuclear. India is now moving in that direction. Private sector participation is vital to accelerate the contribution of nuclear power in India's energy mix. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.